I'm fearful that all of my sermons lately seem to be the bearer of bad news or doom. But what I want to talk about today is something I think that's appropriate given the parsha that traditionally we would read this week. In the full Torah reading cycle, we would read the story of the sin of the golden calf. And traditionally, when that story is read, Lily's also very upset by what I have to talk about today. The story of the golden calf traditionally is read in a subdued tone. And we read it that way because we're ashamed. We're embarrassed by our ancestors and what they did, building an idol. It's not something we want to read about in a loud way, in a boastful way. Not something that we'd put on Facebook or Instagram, to use today's terminology. It's read in a somber tone. And I think that what I have to talk about today is something that might put us in a somber mood, even though that isn't always my intention. Rabbis often use this parsha to talk about the different things that we come to worship as idols. And we can be anything from our phones, from our jobs, our careers, money, our social status. But there's something that in our society, in our world, we're beginning to worship that I think is really dangerous. And in a bit, I'm going to give you an example that I think you all agree with me why. But too often in our world today do we idolize and raise up feelings over truth. And I'm not saying that feelings aren't important. Judaism places a high value on how we treat each other, that we show each other respect and human dignity. But sometimes there is a truth that needs to be said, even if it hurts people's feelings. A few years ago in Poland, they passed a law that dealt with what you could or could not say about the Holocaust. And this law was designed to make sure that the Polish people were not unduly blamed for committing the atrocities of the Nazis, that their feelings weren't hurt. But the truth is, and we know this truth because so many of the people in our community, of our friends and family, those who know a survivor, those who were survivors from Poland, know the truth. That the Polish people were willing participants, far too many of them. The truth is that nearly 2 million Polish people perished at the hands of the Nazis, along with 3 million Polish Jews. The truth is that there are nearly 7,000 righteous Gentiles from Poland that are recognized by Yad Vashem in Jerusalem, who risked their lives to save the Jewish people. Nearly a quarter of this list acknowledging those non-Jews who risked their lives to save others, to save Jewish men, women, and children, are from Poland. Many citizens of Poland acted bravely. Many citizens of Poland went along with the Nazis' plans out of fear and intimidation. Yet they put their own survival first and should be judged with the recognition that none of us have faced those choices. But the truth is also that many citizens of Poland found that the Nazis' plans Thank you, sweetie. It's the wrong tone for this sermon, I think. Despite those that did everything they could and risked their own lives to save Jews, despite those who went along with things, and it's difficult to judge because we've never been in that position. There were many citizens of Poland that found that the Nazis' plans were quite in line with their own thoughts. They found themselves finally able to not only express their hatred for the Jewish people, but being rewarded for it under Nazi occupation. In a book co-authored by Jeffrey Kopstein of the University of Toronto, he details how during the weeks after the German invasion of Poland, as the legal system collapsed, In the face of the oncoming German army, over 200 pogroms occurred. Roughly a quarter of those who participated in the beating, the robbing, the murder of Jewish citizens were their neighbors, ethnic Poles. These are clear cases of Polish anti-Semitism that were finally allowed to run free under German occupation. And yet this law in Poland bans the teaching of this. It forbids it. And we've seen this play out in real life now that this law is a few years old, even though it's been pulled back a bit in face of criticism. Its effects are very, very real. Jan Grabowski, a history professor at the University of Ottawa, researches the relationship between Polish Jews and their surrounding non-Jewish population. And individuals and organizations with a Polish backing have been calling for him to lose his job. Polish government officials have publicly spoken out against him, against a Canadian academic at the University of Ottawa. He has been sued repeatedly for libel. And his research published in 2018 contends that at least 2/3 of the Jews who went into hiding, who might have survived the Nazis, were either betrayed to the Nazis or simply murdered by their Polish neighbors. Feelings are important. And the Polish people should not and do not deserve undue blame for the crimes perpetuated by the Nazis. But the truth matters. And the truth is that there were those in Poland who are good, but there were very few of them. There were more that were indifferent, and sadly, there were far too many who were simply evil, who were simply bad. We've heard these stories. And this Polish law makes the case for witnesses of history, those who lived through these moments being able to share their stories freely. But it's only them. We've heard their stories. I've heard them. Many of you have heard them firsthand. Stories of anti-Semitism they faced from neighbors and peers as children in Poland long before the war. Stories about the people in their town who helped to protect them and their family. And stories about others in their town. Citizens, neighbors, classmates, co-workers, people they thought were their friends, who sold them to the Nazis for their own benefit. They are direct witnesses, and under the law, they can tell their story. But at the point when they are no longer with us, those who fall into that category of lived witnesses, those who are exempted as witnesses of history, who will bear witness? Who will fight back against these laws, against the narratives that the Polish government is putting forth? We know how poor Holocaust education already is in many parts of the world, even here in our own country, in our own city. How little so many know. In a world where the truth is put aside for feelings, who will bear witness? There was another article that came out a couple weeks ago in the Jewish Telegraph Agency that was very, very interesting. An article that cited a story based off of another article published in the Journal of Holocaust Research. A lot of people probably don't read the Journal of Holocaust Research like many other academic journals. But what this article in the newspaper said and noted was that tens of thousands have been reading and clicking to this article because of the fascinating story that its topic was. It was about the Polish Wikipedia pages regarding the Holocaust. And a group of researchers found that for 15 years, a dedicated group has been manipulating these Polish Wikipedia pages on the Holocaust to absolve Poland of responsibility for murder and anti-Semitism. Now, when I was a kid, you couldn't cite Wikipedia. Here today in high school, kids are actually taught how to properly cite Wikipedia. And the truth is that Wikipedia is often fairly accurate. They have safeguards in place, editors and rules for citations, what can be posted. And when someone posts something that's factually incorrect, it's quickly changed and uncovered, especially on controversial pages and stories. But this dedicated campaign that's been going on for 15 years, what these researchers found out, was that this group has been using their knowledge and expertise Their knowledge of the rules and the working behind the scene with Wikipedia to discredit mainstream academics who teach history. Academics like Professor Grabowski, University of Ottawa. And they've been promoting fringe voices, making them seem like this is a reasonable debate, like there really are two sides to this story. And the problem far too often in our society is we allow feelings to trump truth. Things shouldn't be said for the sake of being mean. Feelings, our tradition teaches us, are important. But this is what happens when we raise up the idol of feelings. This case, what was so interesting about it is it's going to the Wikipedia Supreme Court. Over the next few weeks, they're going to be hearing different sides and researching to decide what is the truth that will be printed on this Polish Wikipedia page. A page seen by many, many people long before they would open up a journal of Holocaust studies. A page that will influence the conversation and what is known in terms of Holocaust education for those who speak Polish for potentially generations. This is an incredibly important moment, an incredibly important page when it comes to Holocaust history and remembering the Shoah. And the question then for us is, how will we bear witness? How will we stand up to make sure that the truth isn't forgotten? That those who fall into the category as a witness of history, how will we stand in their place against laws, against those who want to discredit academia and truth? I suggest the Polish people look to the Jewish people as an example. Our tradition has a long history of not hiding the things that embarrass us. There are stories and moments in our Torah that we don't erase. We might read them more quietly. We might not emphasize them in the same way, but we don't erase them. There are laws and traditions in our community that we've changed. Because the idea of stoning children for being rebellious and simply being children doesn't make sense. That capital punishment is an appropriate crime for breaking the Sabbath, the rabbis wrote out. They didn't cross it out of the Torah and pretend like it never happened. They reinterpreted it. They changed it, and we learned from that. There are parts of our history as Canadians, there are parts of our history in the West that we might be ashamed of. But pretending like they didn't happen doesn't solve anything. It might spare people's feelings, but truth matters. And I suggest that the Polish people take some time to look inward and to look at our example. That we continue to look inward. To think about how we remember the past at moments we aren't proud of. But that we never let anyone forget what happened in the Shoah. Shabbat Shalom.